When we think about LifeWay Global and ministering to the church around the world, it always starts with Matthew 28. We all know the call of the Lord to go to the nations. But as you back up in that passage, before he tells us to go, it says in verse 17 that Jesus drew near to them and some worshiped. And then he said, all authority in heaven and earth has been given to me. And then he said, therefore go and make disciples of the nations. So at LifeWay Global, we're always committed to starting in a place of personal worship and devotion, appropriating the authority of Christ. And then when we go, we're so much more effective in supporting and loving the church as she makes disciples. Our assignment is very simple in LifeWay Global. We're here to make biblical solutions for life a reality to the body of Christ worldwide. As you think about the explosive growth of the church around the world, while it's exciting to see the church planting movement, so many people coming to Christ, at the same time, there's this extraordinary poverty of Christian content around the world that LifeWay wants to help reverse. There's 7.2 billion people in the world. Roughly 2 billion in the most loose sense would be described as Christians. 700 to 800 million are evangelical Christians, with maybe only 10% of those in the United States. So there's extraordinary need around the world, and yet there's this extraordinary gap that we're trying to respond to at LifeWay Global. We've got a handful of promises as we go and serve the church around the world. The first is that we will always deliver against the highest doctrinal and theological standards in everything we produce. We're also committed to editorial excellence in everything that we deliver to the church and to the individuals that we want to serve with our content. Next, we're committed to serving and raising up indigenous authors and leaders around the world who have something to say to their people in their language and in their culture. And a part of that is us raising up indigenous staff. We've got leaders in places like China and India and Mexico, Australia and South America. So we're thrilled that God's raising up leaders for LifeWay around the world. We're also committed to listening well to the needs of the church, and not just the U.S. church, but taking this incredible content that God's blessed us to produce and contextualizing it for other parts of the world. We're also committed to engineering resources that are affordable for the masses around the world. It's great content we produce, but if people can't afford it, they're not going to be impacted by it. We also want to operate in the widest range of market channels and leverage the widest range of technologies as we go to the nations. If we want to reach hundreds of millions of people with life-changing content, then we've got to go everywhere that we possibly can using as much technology as we can to get there. But while we're reaching the masses, we can never forget our responsibility to care well for each soul. And then finally, as we're going to the nations, we always have to remember that at LifeWay Global, that we are ambassadors for Christ in everything that we do. And while we want to measure the number of lives we're reaching for Christ, and we want to be good stewards of the work that we do, we've got to remember that the most important stewardship that we have at LifeWay Global is that we exist to advance the glory of God.